Welcome back to the Idaho Alternate Assessment Science Portfolio Tutorial Series. My name is Karen Striegel, and I'm the Special Education Coordinator for Alternate Assessment, Low Incidence Disabilities, and Medicaid School-Based Services. Since you have probably viewed the first two tutorials in this series, you will remember that the purpose of this tutorial series is to prepare special education teachers and staff to implement the IDAA science portfolio with their students with the most significant cognitive impairments who meet the Idaho Alternate Assessment Participation Criteria. These tutorial topics correspond with the major sections of the Idaho Alternate Assessment Science Portfolio Manual. As you work through these tutorials, you will find page references to the Idaho Alternate Assessments Portfolio Manual on some slides. This third tutorial covers administrative components of the IDAA Science Portfolio. You will want to have your IDAA Science Portfolio Manual with you while viewing this tutorial. Pause this recording to get your manual if you don't already have it. I will be reviewing who is responsible for administering the IDAA Science Portfolio, training information for those test administrators, and issues related to test ethics and test security. I will also speak to how allowable accommodations and assistive technology play a role in the IDAA Science Portfolio administration. There are many individuals who may be appropriate test administrators for the IDAA Science Portfolio. Therefore, test administrators include those who provide science instruction to a student who qualifies to participate in the IDAA Science Portfolio. I am talking about professionally certified staff or supervised paraprofessionals who work directly with the student. You see here the list of staff who could be considered appropriate test administrators to teach science and collect student artifacts. The general education teacher in whose class the student has been included, a special education teacher who is teaching the content, a speech-language pathologist who is working on language by using content as a mechanism, or a paraprofessional who is working under the supervision of a certified teacher collecting artifacts and recording data on the learning of a student. Staff administering any part of the assessment are responsible for attending, watching training, reading provided materials, and for following the SDE procedures for the IDAA Science Portfolio Administration. This cartoon shows a woman looking at a man saying, "We're looking for someone who is responsible." In IDAA Science Portfolio land, this is the teacher of record. It is important to understand that only one person is ultimately responsible for the collection of the artifacts and the submission of the portfolio evidence into IPASS to ensure that nothing is overlooked. The teacher of record is responsible for submitting artifacts and completing the portfolio in the IPASS application, as well as assuring that security measures are followed. It is also the teacher of record's responsibility to assure that all staff working with their students are informed and follow the handbook directions. Let me mention here, IPASS is the electronic portfolio system, and I will talk more about this later, so breathe. At this point, all of the training materials related to the IDAA Science Portfolio Administration live on the Idaho Training Clearinghouse in the IDAA Science Portfolio resource. You already know that the IDAA Science Portfolio Manual 2019 and the IPASS User Guide are both posted here. Since you are watching this tutorial, you know the tutorials live here as well. If you or any of your staff need additional information or training, please contact me. I only ask that you review all of the available material before you call or email me. My contact information is listed on the last slide. Let's talk about assessment ethics and test security. The nature of a portfolio assessment makes these matters less clear than for other types of student assessment. The instructional materials you use to teach science content are not considered secure materials. Student work samples and performance data are not considered secure materials until they have been designated as portfolio artifacts. Once student artifacts and performance data are slated to be included in the student's IDAA science portfolio, any materials associated with these artifacts and data become secure as well. The assessment ethics and test security associated with students' artifacts, performance data, testing materials are the same as for secure testing materials related to any statewide assessment. They must be kept under lock and key and/or on a password-protected device. Remember, you must keep students' personally identifiable information secure at all times. The IPASS application is structured such that only the assigned teacher can complete the student response check, enter baseline data, upload student artifacts, score artifacts, and submit the portfolio. This means that although more than one staff member may be teaching and assessing students participating in the IDAA science portfolio, only the designated teacher works in IPASS. This is usually the teacher of record. So, in the name of assessment ethics and test security, don't share your IPASS application password with other district personnel at any time, including paraprofessionals. All staff involved in the IDAA science portfolio process are personally responsible for maintaining assessment ethics and test security. This can sometimes be an issue for paraprofessionals who do not always have access to locked cabinets or password-protected devices, especially when you do not share your passwords. Violation of test security can result in prosecution and/or penalties as imposed by the Idaho State Board of Education and/or the Idaho State Superintendent of Public Instruction in accordance with all applicable state federal laws and Idaho State Board of Education regulations. Be mindful of maintaining assessment ethics and test security at all times, even in the little things. It is expected that, during the administration of the IDAA science portfolio, students will receive the prompts, supports, and accommodations specified on the IEP and typically used during instruction and other assessments. In other words, students should receive the prompts, supports, and accommodations outlined on their IEP when creating artifacts. This might be different from how prompts, supports, and accommodations are addressed for students taking the ISAT, because not all instructional supports and accommodations are allowable on the ISAT. The level of independent scoring component on the IDAA science portfolio accounts for the use of more intensive supports, prompts, and accommodations necessary for students with the most significant cognitive impairments to demonstrate the academic achievement. I will discuss all the artifact scoring components in more detail during Tutorial 4. As you all know, IDEA regulations specify that all accommodations necessary to facilitate participation in state-mandated assessments must be provided to a student, and that assistive technology be considered during the annual IEP meeting. The SDE recommends and expects that IEP teams for students participating in the IDAA will determine the student's need for AT. You want to be sure to leverage AT for students as they develop artifacts so they can show what they know at their highest level of independence. The Idaho Assistive Technology Project offers information, training, and consultation for teachers and districts. You can see a screenshot of the Idaho AT project here. The web address is idahoat.org. In this tutorial, I explained that any professionally certified staff or paraprofessional working under the supervision of professionally certified staff may be considered a test administrator. All of these personnel should access the manuals and training tutorials located on the ITC in the Idaho Alternate Assessment Science Portfolio resource. I reviewed assessment ethics and testing security. I also talked about how accommodations and AT play a role in the development of student artifacts. Congratulations! You have completed tutorial 3. The next tutorial covers everything you need to know about student artifacts. I would like to thank you for your time and attention to this tutorial. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me anytime. Simple questions are easily handled over email. If you have complicated questions or you're not sure how to ask your question, please give me a call.